Hi, welcome back. Recently, I was asked by a student whether a firm is able to pass on any increase in cost of production to consumers in terms of higher prices. Specifically, what the student wanted to know was if there was a $2 increase in cost per unit output, is the firm able to raise the price by a full extent of the increase in cost? Meaning, can the firm raise the price by $2 full? The general answer is no, right? That's because normally we have a demand curve that has a normal looking downward sloping gradient. But let's take this one step at a time. An increase in cost of production, right, should cause the supply curve of a firm to shift vertically upwards by a vertical extent of, let's say, $2, right? So you can see from the graph, the vertical height between the original supply curve S0 and the new supply curve S1 is delta C, right? When I add in a demand curve now, right, you can see that the equilibrium price will increase from P0 to P1, and the difference being delta P is the change in price. You can see from the diagram, obviously, right, that the increase in price will be shorter in height than the increase in cost delta C, right, suggesting that the increase in cost cannot be fully passed on to the consumer. But if you think about it a little further, what if we played with the gradient of the demand curve, right? Now I'm adding in a green color demand curve indicating a much more inelastic demand. Right? Comparing the green demand curve and the blue demand curve, you can see that the increase in price is actually more significant given the same increase in cost. Right? The delta P in green is actually bigger than the delta P in blue. This suggests that PED actually can impact on the extent to which the firm can pass on the higher cost. Now, let's extrapolate this a little further. What if we have a perfectly priced inelastic demand, right? That looks like a vertical line. Right? You can see from the diagram now, right? The entire increase in cost delta C is fully passed on to the consumer in terms of change in prices. So to answer the student's question, can a firm pass on the higher cost to the consumer fully? Well, it is possible if the demand was perfectly priced inelastic. Now let's ask about the other extreme. What if the demand curve was perfectly priced elastic? Now that will have a show up as a horizontal demand curve. You can see from the diagram, right, the same increase in cost now, right, will not be passed on at all to the consumer. So the firm will fully absorb the higher cost of production. So this concludes the idea that PED plays a role. But PES also plays a role in affecting the extent to which the firm can pass on the cost. This next diagram you will see, right, if we draw a horizontal supply curve and a normal looking demand curve, the perfectly priced elastic supply curve is a horizontal line. An upward shift, right, to indicate the increase in cost of delta C, right, you can see the equilibrium price will increase by the full extent of the increase in the cost of production. So there is another way to explain how a firm might be able to pass on the higher cost. Now, one application of this question could be in the recent 2024 A-level exam, where they asked about whether an increase in GST, right, can be fully passed on to the consumer in terms of higher prices. Then conceptually, there are two ways this can happen. Either you have a perfectly priced inelastic demand curve, or you have a perfectly priced elastic supply curve, none of which are quite common or normal cases, right? So, but theoretically, they are possible. All right, I hope that helps.